Alright, welcome back. So today we're going to be looking at double pivoting with Ligolo. So as you can see, I have this network 192.168.0.143. So it's in the 192.168.0.0/24 network, which can connect to this guy over here, right? I can go ahead and ping him, and we can see that I can get those pings back, right? However, I cannot ping this 10 network, right? So if I try to ping that 10.10.10.54 IP address right here, I obviously can't ping that, and I obviously can't ping this 10.10 or this 10.20 IP address. Cannot ping either of those two, right? And if we do an IP route, we can see that I have no routes to those hosts, right? So if this guy decides to react, there we go. I see that I have no routes to those hosts, correct? So what we're going to be looking at is putting Ligolo on the machine, which I already have on there. All right, so if I do a dir over here, actually it's in an import module, so now you can see that because it went into temp now. So actually now you can see it, but it's already been imported. So if I do an invoke Ligolo, remember this script is on my GitHub, tech lhost, and I put in my IP address that's over here, 192.168.0.143. I'm going to get an error. That's just because the temp is already made. So from here, let's go ahead and do a bash Ligolo quick start over here. Again, that's also on my GitHub. All right, we got 10.10.10.54, so we're going to do a 10.10.10.0/24. We know that because it's 255.255.255.0 subnet mask. We'll go ahead and we'll hit enter, and this will start up Ligolo for us, and we'll hit enter over here. And like I said, we're going to get an error because the C temp is already made, but it's still going to run it. It says to start up a web server. We're going to hit enter twice, and we can see that it did start over here, and we did get a callback. So if we do a session, we see we have a new session. We put in 1, there we go. And from here, we can do start, and we can type in ifconfig, and we can see that we now have a session to 10.10.10.54, right? If I do an IP route now, we can see that that was added into our network here, into our routing table. So now I can now do things on 10.10.10.54. Since this machine is also connected through 10.10.10.54, so I should be able to ping 10.10.10.53, and I can, okay, because this machine over here is on the same network as 10.10.10.54. I can now do another pivot down to this 10.20.20 network. I cannot ping it yet, but I should technically be able to do another pivot down to that network. To be able to do this, we're going to start a listener. So we're going to do a listener add. And it's going to be, let me go ahead and grab my notes like real quick on it. It's going to be listener add, the address, TCP, boom, boom. Hop back over to here. So address, quad zeros, 11601, which is the default port that Ligolo listens on, to 127.0.0.1, 11601 in TCP. So we go ahead and add that listener. So now if we do a listener list, we can see that we now have a listener over here ready to go. Now we can do another bash Ligolo quick start. All right, we can do that and then put in this 10.20.20.0 network. We're going to get an error. Okay, but I'll show you what happens. 20.20/24. Okay, we will get an error because it's saying, hey, this is already, we can't do that, right? This is already open over here. Ligolo is already opened. But if I do an IP route now, we can see that the 10.20.20.0 network is in here. So it's ready to go. Okay, we've already did IP route add, which I'll show that by hand here in a second. But over here, we can also do an import or invoke Ligolo, tech lhost, and we can bring it back to ourselves. It's a 192 address. Okay, ctemp already exists. We know that. And we should get a callback on this listener back over here. All right, and we see that we have a new agent joined now. That was from my listener over here. So we now have a new agent joined. That's this guy over here. So if I go to session now, we now see that we have two different sessions, right? Let's go down to session 2. We'll start that up. And we're going to say yes. And now we do an ifconfig. And we see that we are now setting it off to 10.20.20.0 to .4/24, so really .0. But we also have this interfacing right here and there, but that also means that I can now technically ping that 10.20.20.4 network. So that is double pivoting with Ligolo. So we pivoted right here, right? And then we pivoted down here. So how is that working? Well, what's happening here is on this first machine, if I look at my IP route, right? When I very first go out, I'm going out to this first machine out here. Okay, because both of these are going to go out the same way, right? So whenever it goes out, it does see that 10.20.20 does reside down here, on this machine down here, because of this first machine's connection that we have, which has a connection back to us from this 192 address. So it goes out to the first machine, through my 192, to 10.10.10.54, right? And that gets pushed from there to 10.20.20.4, well, 10.10.10.53, lastly to 10.20.20.4. All right, so that is how we're able to do a double pivot, and we could technically just continue going this, right? If there's another someone else on the backside of this guy with 10.30.30, and he also had a 10.20.20 network address, then we could technically just continue just to keep pushing this and just keep pivoting. So further than just double pivoting, going, as many times as you really want to. Just realize that with each one, it does move a little bit slower. All right, hopefully you enjoyed the video. Hopefully you learned something. I'll talk to you all later. All right, so I got a little bit too excited. I ended the video a little bit too soon, right? I said I'd show you guys how to do this by hand also. Let's go and stop this over here. We'll stop this over here. All right, we'll stop this. We'll exit out of here. And we're going to do a sudo IP route delete. We're going to delete both of those guys. Sudo IP route delete. And we're going to delete both that 20 network and also this 10 network, like right here, right? So now both those are gone. So if I try to ping him, he is now gone. Ligolo is now gone. Everything like that, right? Let's go ahead and do this by hand now. So by hand with Ligolo, okay, very first thing we need to do is we need to create a tunnel, right? And then we need to do a proxy self-cert. Okay, so you need to make sure that you have all this set up. This is what the script is doing for you that I created. Okay, so if we do something like this, right? So sudo IP tunnel tap add user Kali mode tunnel Ligolo. If you're not using user Kali, you're gonna have to put a different user there. All right, then it's gonna IP link set Ligolo to up, and then proxy self-cert. Okay, that is now ready to go, and we've done everything. So if I do an IP route, right? Oh, we won't have anything yet because we haven't actually added a route yet, have we? So this is just getting Ligolo prepared and everything like that. Now we need to call back to our agent, right? If we do a dir over here, we'll see that agent.exe already exists. Okay, so we're going to do a /agent.exe, tag connect, and we're going to connect it back to our IP address. Oh, our IP address back over here. There we go. Okay. So 192.168.0.143. Oh, clicking everywhere, huh? All right. TAC ignore cert. Oh, port 11601. TAC ignore cert. We have to do that because we have created that that self-signed certificate, right? So we go ahead and hit enter there, and he now sends it across, and our listener has now come up with something new, right? So if we do an ifconfig, or excuse me, session 1 start, all right, ifconfig, we can see that we now are talking to that. However, if I do an IP route, you'll see there's no route in there. So if I try to ping 10.10.10.54, it still does not work because there's no route in there. Right? So now what we need to do is we now need to add in our route and bring it to Ligolo. So we're going to say 10.10.10.0/24 dev Ligolo. Okay. So sudo IP route add. There we go. Now if I go ahead and I try to ping that 10.10.10.54 again, we can now ping it because we have told it that, hey, our route that we have here is going to go through Ligolo, which is calling through up here. Doing pretty much that same exact thing that we just did, right? We're going to do our listener again. So we go ahead and grab that command one more time. Throw our listener in there, right? So we can listen. We can do a listener list again, just make sure it is listening. It is. Cool. So we got our listener there now, right? And from here, we can now go ahead and do the same exact thing that we just did. So we can do a /agent on our other machine, tag connect to 192.168. 10.0.143.11601 tac ignore cert, because we made a self-signed cert, right? We hit enter like right there, and once it gets back to our agent back here, our listener, excuse me, then we'll be able to make that connection. So like I said before, this is going to take a few seconds, so I'll be back as soon as this happens. All right, we got it back. So now if we do a session, we can go down to the number 2. It looks like actually we're already on it. Let's go ahead and do start, yes. But as once again, we cannot ping it yet because we don't have a route for it, right? So we got to do an IP route or sudo IP route add 10.10.10 or 10.20.20.0/24. See, that was this guy's IP address, right? Of who we're trying to get to, correct? Dev Ligolo, enter. Now if I do my IP route, we can see I now have 2 different networks in there. Looks a lot like what it did before. We go ahead and try to ping it, and now we can ping that 10.20.20.4 network. All right, so that is by hand, or you could utilize the script that I have created, which does the same exact thing. The script is on GitHub. So I hope you guys learned something again, and yep, have a wonderful day.